everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Prepping by Faith, and today we are going to discuss part 4 of my nuclear attack planning series. In this video, we will go over the order of events that you should prioritize in this situation. We are also going to discuss some family planning, things that you would want to discuss with your children and your spouse in the event they are not home if something like this were to take place. And then I also want to talk about what happens after that 24 to 48 hour shelter in place, things like water filtration and how to grow food. If you guys missed part 3, in that video, I discussed how to protect your ventilation system and your home from radioactive fallout particles. And before we get started discussing these things, I just wanted to kind of talk to you about something. Those of you that are thinking, why do I need to know this if something like this happens? I'm just going to die anyway. What is the point? I just wanted to tell you guys that that is wrong thinking, and that desire to survive, that will to survive, is much stronger than you think. So if you have it in your head that you're just gonna sit in a corner and starve to death or die of radiation poisoning, I've got news for you. Your instincts are going to kick in, and that is going to be a terrible death. So it is better to be prepared than to just go ahead and say, no, I'm just going to die. We always want to be prepared. I feel like we need to discuss these things, because even though there are those that are going to say these kinds of things might not happen, they're very rare, I still think if we're going to call ourselves preppers, that we need to cover every possible scenario to the best of our ability. Okay? So what I wanted to do is discuss family preparedness real quick. A conversation that you might want to have with your children, making sure they understand what to do if they're at school and you can't come and get them right away, how to shelter in place. And if, their principal or their teachers don't know what to do, at least if your children do know what to do, that could be empowering, and, they could help guide the school and what should be done. So they want to, if they have a basement, go to the basement and shelter in place there. If not, at ground level, they want to stay in an interior room, interior space like a bathroom, as we discussed in part 1. And something else that you guys might want to think about is different things you can put in their backpack. Small things that aren't going to take up a lot of space, but maybe you guys want to start keeping some extra snacks, extra water. I know they don't make N95 masks for children, but they do make KF94 masks, which are pretty close. So you might want to put one of those in there, some gloves, maybe a poncho, some goggles, stuff like that, so that when you are able to go get them, if there's still radioactive fallout, your children are going to be able to be protected while you get them home. And then you want to have a discussion with your spouse about what they're supposed to do if they're not at home and they're at work when an event like this happens. We kind of touched on in part 2 different items they can keep in their bag, but I want to reiterate it's important that they have an N95 mask, water, a Tyvek suit, gloves, goggles, and some of the other emergency items that we discussed. I also wanted to mention, if you guys work farther out and you're not that close to home, you might want to consider getting yourself something like a collapsible bike to keep in your trunk. With a nuclear attack, sometimes we've seen that an EMP is possible, so that would render vehicles useless. And also, if a bunch of people were on the road and they ditched their vehicles to try to get to shelter, the roads are going to be blocked, so you're going to want a way to get around them and get home more quickly. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is the sheet that I have put together for my family. Yours might look a little bit different, but this will give you guys an idea of what to do. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get suited up to protect yourself from radioactive particles. And And then you're going to want to head outside and cover your AC unit with a cover and duct tape it on there really good. And then you're going to look around, make sure there's no outdoor ventilation. Anything that you can reach, take that heavy duty plastic sheeting and duct tape that as well. Then when you come inside, you're going to want to take those items off carefully and place them inside of a bag, close it up and toss that aside. If you can toss that back outside, all the better. And then you're going to want to clean yourself off carefully before you move on to the next task. So what you're going to want to do next is grab those pre-cut heavy duty plastic sheets that we've already labeled, and you're going to want to start duct taping those up to your windows, your doors, your vents, fireplace, your vent to your microwave, anywhere where there's vents and air can get in and those radioactive fallout particles could enter your home. Once you've completed that, you want to grab all of your items that you need and move them into your sheltered area. For us, that would be our basement. So we're going to grab all of those things that we discussed in part 2 and start moving them. The next thing you want to do is fill your water bobs and any containers with water. You want to make sure they're covered. So that's why I'm suggesting something like the water bob that's encased in plastic, and then any other containers that you can get a hold of, just to make sure those are closed and we still have potable water after the event. The next thing you're going to want to do is turn off your gas and your water. That's very important because we don't want any flooding, we don't want any gas lines bursting and fires to deal with. So that is important that we do that. The next thing you're going to want to do, I have on here to grab our go bags and stuff like that. That could already be moved in your first round of preps. If you are going to be sheltering in a basement, one of the things that you can do is decide wherever your location is, you can determine where to move the furniture. You want to put as much material between yourself and those radioactive particles as possible so you can move your furniture over that area. For us, it is a large open hallway. We would be shoving furniture over that space for added protection. Then you want to shelter in place until the all clear, which is going to be most likely within 24 to 48 hours. The next thing I wanted to show you guys is I had mentioned to you before that I have created sheets for each of my family members. Ellie is my youngest. She's 7. So one of the first things that I've instructed them to do is to put on shoes. I think that's going to be important for any event that we discuss. Any situation, you want to make sure your feet are covered before you start moving around and completing tasks. That way, if you had to vacate your area, you already have something on your feet. So for her, it's just to grab her go bag, any pillows, blankets, stuffed animals that's going to make her cozy, and then for her to go to our basement. And then this list that I have for my oldest, who is nearly 12, looks similar, but then I've added a few other things on here for her. She would grab, the paper crayons, that sort of thing for their entertainment, and then she would help us move lighter items to the basement, things like sleeping bags, and then also maybe like the food bucket, just lighter items that she can move easily. And then the next thing she would do is grab our dog and her bag, and then she would go down into the basement to watch over her and her younger sister. And then I have a list for my husband and I. It's going to look similar to the prioritization list that I created. There are a few extra things on here that I want to mention. I do have on here to lock the house up. If we've exited the home at all, trying to take care of our ventilation, I want to make sure that we lock the house. And if we have time to go ahead and put night locks on the doors as well, just because you don't know who's going to be in your neighborhood. There could be displaced people that are looking for a building to enter. And if you've left your door open, you could have, some random strangers walking around upstairs. We do not want a situation like that. So it's best to make sure your home is not an easy access point. Something else I added on here was just to double check my girls' preps, make sure they didn't leave anything upstairs like a bag or something that was important. And then I also have on here to grab my Bible. I am going to want to stay in communication with God. I do know a lot of scripture by heart, but I'm also going to want my Bible as a reference point. So that is important to me. And then I just wanted to kind of talk about what happens after that 24 to 48 hour period. We don't really discuss that very much. We think once we get through this initial disaster and we've lived through that, well, that's it. Well, it's not going to be it. You know, you're going to face a world that is going to look very different. There's going to be radioactive fallout outside on everything, and that fallout is going to penetrate the soil. It is going to contaminate the groundwater. And if you guys think because you have a well and it's, you know, several hundred feet deep that you're good to go, you're okay for a moment as long as you have, you know, plenty of gas and a generator forever, gas to keep pumping that well water up out of there. But if you don't have indefinite gas, like most people aren't going to, or you don't have solar energy hooked up to pump that water out of there, you're going to need some sort of a filtration system to filter that water. You're not going to be able to grow food or continue to get more water for your family without some way of filtering it. So one of the YouTube channels that I discovered is called Desert Sun 02. And he constructed a homemade water filter, and he used a plastic 2-liter bottle, some sand, coarse gravel, a small piece of cotton, and then activated carbon, which you can get in aquarium supplies. And he made this homemade water filter to filter out, you know, the larger particles. So I'm going to link his video in the description box below. You know, he's already gone ahead and done this. I don't see the point in reinventing the wheel, so I'm going to link that for you guys to look at. And then you would want to run your water through something like your Big Berkey to make sure all of those, as many of those radioactive particles that you can get out are filtered out. For yourself, your pets, and obviously, you know, any livestock or plant life that you're going to be trying to grow. And then I wanted to talk about food. We don't really talk about how we're going to grow food after a situation like this. That topsoil is going to be contaminated. So if you try to remove all that topsoil, you're going to remove all the nutrients that you need for your plants to grow. So I don't know how that would work for you. I'm thinking that what we should discuss is getting ourselves some types of greenhouses. They do have some that aren't all that expensive, pop-up versions that we can put up, and then grow bags. And we want to store some, you know, extra dirt. We want to store some sort of fertilizer. And, you know, if you could hook up a system to where you could have grow lights running off of solar energy, that would be something to think about so that you can continue to grow food. We're going to have to be able to continue to grow food if we are going to survive. So I just wanted to bring all this stuff to you guys' attention. I think it's important that we discuss it as a community and that we talk about these things. I know, you know, we don't want to think about something like this happening, but the more prepared we are and the more we go over these things, then the easier it's going to be for us to react in a situation like this. If you've learned something from this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. God bless.